Okay, welcome to the episode 2 of the Infamous Performance with me and Benjamin.
Yes.
Okay.
Today we are going to go over work-rest ratio, how to apply it appropriately, potential burnout, what is burnout, how you could potentially achieve it or stave off from burnout. Just kind of start off. What is burnout? I'll give you a definition. Start off with ruining one's health or becoming completely exhausted through overwork. This could be life, training, or a combination of both of those aspects. I think through our experiences, we've definitely been burnt out through the years of training and just life. So, yeah, tell me about when you're most burnt out.
I felt burnout from training. I felt burnout from too much work, and a combination of doing both at the same time. So I'm not going to go through all of my burnouts because there's been a lot.
It's like a 2-hour
but
podcast.
I can definitely think of a couple. One briefly was when I first started CrossFit into 2011, 2012. I was still heavily influenced with a lot of heavy lifting in my bodybuilding, and then sort of like blending that with just WODs, basically. Heavy WODs. Always thinking the heavier, the better, the more reward I'm going to get. And then making myself really, really ill. I was like, developed a cough. I came down really sick. I had to go to the doctors. They done blood tests. Found a high white count. So then I had to do more severe testing. They tested me for everything back then. So for HIV, leukemia, cancers. Because I didn't really tell them what I was doing. I've just come here saying, look, I'm sick. The bloods are showing that I'm sick, but we don't know what it is that's making me sick.
Did you know in yourself it was burnout, or did you just kind of, like, I guess going with that bodybuilder-esque mentality, I know you're like all the hard workouts, you're like, just push it to the side?
I even looked into things like Lyme disease. I was thinking I've got a disease because, I was just incredibly fatigued. I was ill for a long time. I wasn't myself. And because I've never really been told anything about burnout, what it is, that you can actually lower yourself through just overload of life and training. And for me then it was definitely a massive overload of training.
So you knew you were burnt out just from being ill.
Well,
how long were you ill for?
This was weeks. So I developed a cough and it was like a virus, and then I was going for more bloods, and I was just racking the doctor's brain. He was just like, I don't know what is going on. And then I think it was when I went to see him once, he said, like, what are you doing? And then I actually started talking to him about my training. And then he asked me more about that. And then when I told him at a week's worth of what I'd done, he was like, oh my God, you've basically just obliterated your immune system. It's shut down. You've overdone it. You need to rest. So rest for me back then was, okay, I'm going to go do some swimming or do some light running. He was like, no. When I mean rest, he means I want you to sit at home. You do nothing. And sure, I had more blood tests done. Everything cleared up. 5 weeks after that, what did I do? Back into the fucking work zone and made myself ill yet again.
You must have been a pretty deep hole to take that much time off.
It was a point that I honestly thought. And then when I looked at my evolution of training schedules over a year, it's like I would go up, I'd get ill, I'd come down, then I'd go back up. And then I didn't realise that it was actually me doing that. I thought I had, I was looking for this answer, like, oh yeah, you've got this disease that does it. And no, it was me. It was all down to me overdoing it.
So your progression was just not, I guess, same as how you're feeling burnout. You're getting really high peaks and then just massively dropping off really high peaks. So it wasn't sustainable at all.
No, not sustainable at all. If anything, if you keep doing that throughout your life, eventually you probably will kill yourself. So
it's probably
your body will get to an age where it's like, right, your heart will go, right, I've had enough, or you will get sick. So it's like that. And then the second time I experienced it with workload was when I worked 3 jobs and I started doing night work as a doorman.
You'd come in
trying to do CrossFit as well, and trying to do PRs on the lift, and trying to be big and strong. Wow, yeah. So that was a juggle of like crossing them all over, and again feeling that burnout. And then that's when I started to obviously listen to a CrossFit Games athlete, Marcus Philly, who actually got me to understand burnout and overtraining and change. And then that's a whole nother story. And I run with his functional body building programs for a while. and got me out of that hole.
But the workload was obviously still there, so you were still learning to manage it, right? So
I was learning to manage it, but my biggest problem then was that I was still doing the door work, and then that's when I learned a lot about the sleep.
Yeah.
And then, I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with the Matthew Walker,
Yeah,
Why We Sleep.
awesome.
Got the book, read that, mind blown. Best book I've ever written for me. I'm not a big book reader. I'm definitely a visual audio, but I learned a lot from that. So
And
definitely
that's what
recommend if you're struggling with sleep, which is, again, where we're going with this episode. We're just going to talk more about it.
Yeah.
So how to spot it. How do you know if you're burning out? Okay.
I think the biggest one you touched on is injury.
Injury.
Like literally injury or illness. But that, I think the body is such a hardy machine. You can be in, like, you were doing 3 jobs for a couple of, like, a good number of years.
Oh, so
you can you can be in a state of burnout for such a long time, but just physically and mentally push through it.
So I started doing door work in 2014, October 2014. But I was only really doing like the Friday or Saturday night. Then 2015 I started coaching here, and then my shift is always a 6 a.m. start, so I'm up at 5 o'clock. And then as those years progressed, obviously the door work was a good bit of money, and I started doing more of it, so then it spilled into the week, so then I'd end up doing like a shift in the week or two, which then started to counterfeit with this. So if I was working, say, Wednesday morning and having to be here and coach at 6, and I was getting in from a shift Tuesday night, say 4 o'clock, you can now see there's only a few hours sleep there.
That's nothing. There's not even any point really to go to sleep.
So now you keep doing, and like...
But you did that like, 3-4 years then?
It was all. So I was all the way up to 2017, I think, when I stopped doing the door work.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that's... Yeah, I think the biggest thing through my experience of burnout is just injury. Like that's something you'll... you've hit, like, not the bottom end of it, but...
Lucky enough, I think, because I've always been so high into my mobility, I prevented a lot of serious injuries. Because, the state that I was in, you're high risk. Mine was definitely more mental and nerval from the fatigue of burning out. It was just a big case of... I'm not saying that the door work was bad. What I'm saying is that the intensity level of my training didn't work with the level of recovery that I was getting. So I could have still trained. I'm not saying to people, if you work night shifts, you can't train. You've got to match your training with that stressor. So if your recovery is really low, then I definitely wouldn't advise doing high intensity metcons every day.
As a night shift, like... Yeah, we know it's not a natural rhythm.
It's not a natural rhythm, and it's always going to play against your training.
Yeah, so training is going to look completely different if you do work night shift, and that kind of fits into your life really. But that's the same as kind of how you can get towards or see burnout come in is intensity, like way too much intensity for way too long, and that's your first experience of true burnout was too much intensity for way too long. As you said, it was like the bodybuilding mentality, getting into the CrossFit every day was like, what, go hard.
We know now that too much intensity for too long will have an adverse effect on your body. Just as in under eating to body composition over too long will have an effect on your body. So we know that, and that's what you've got to feel like. A lot of people feel to get what they want, especially in mainly CrossFit, is they feel like that push for intensity every day is going to give them the body that they want and give them the goals that they need. But in real aspect, like if you're trying to get strong and you're burning this and that amount of calories and you've not got your nutrition working with your training, no, you're not going to get... You're going to burn away more. Even though you can turn up, you can do that workout, you can sweat, you can feel hard. And it's the same even with... like take that away from training. Now, if you've got a life that's the same, like you've got a 9-to-5 job that...
You've got kids, stress...
You've got kids, it's the same thing. You've got to weigh it up. And that's where I think a lot of people, and including myself, I've done it for a long time, I didn't have the balance between my training and my lifestyle. They just were clashing.
A big part of that, I think, definitely comes down to, like... Obviously, social media is great, you can get stuff out there, but I remember starting CrossFit and you're seeing these people do like crazy workouts day in, day out. And it's not just the CrossFit industry. We use CrossFit a lot just because that's where we're kind of based. But you see day in, day out, it's that hard workout. Here's my time. Give it a try. And I love that. Like, that's great. But then you're not taking into account what these professionals are doing in terms of recovery. As you said, stress management.
That's the bad side of the social media aspect, is that you always see the glory. You always see the big lifts, the achievements, the fitness. But I don't think there's probably enough of these high spec athletes going, fuck me, I'm burnt out. I've been ill. I'm sitting at home. I feel like shit. I've put on a few pounds. My body composition's off. And I think when you see some of the radar, see some of these athletes slip off the radar, you can normally see that that's probably the burnout stage. But they're not talking about it because it's not glorious. It's not.
I think it definitely has.
People don't want to hear that, do they?
No. But the face of it has started to change. Like you mentioned, Marcus Philly. He's a beautiful example. Not a lot of people, or if you do know about him, he used to do a year, or he's spoken about he'd do a year of hard competitive work for CrossFit Games. Then he'd take like a year out. Fraser's the same. After the games, he'll take like 3 months of like minimal work. So he's really and you see the change it's
and
made.
We all know that. We all know the one thing that Fraser does. When he was training to be a competitive athlete, he had nothing but a house, a room, and a train. There was no high-end stressful jobs. There was no here and there. There was no kids running around. He was just eat, sleep, shit, CrossFit, you know. And that's what made it. And obviously the mindset and the person himself. But we know all the protocols of recovery were there. Everything he does is perfect to optimize in his sport.
And he managed outside things. And that's something like how you can see it come in as well. It's like if your training has not changed at all, but then lifestyle factors like having a child that's a huge change in lifestyle factors. So that's gonna.
Well, then we can go to the previous champ, Rich Froning, and go, okay, why did he step out of individual? Because he wanted to become a dad. And he got these kids, and he knew that there was going to be more time that has to commit to them. Yeah, he's still a phenomenal athlete. He knew he could juggle that up with going team. But, you know, trying to do that always, they know what the pressure is to be an individual. And I know we're talking about high-end athletes, but you got to
scale it
down and look where you are. You know, like if you ever do a Rich Froning workout, you know you've got to scale it straight away.
Oh yeah, that's the same. Yeah, that's the same with everything. And like we can only manage our own stress to a kind of a level, like in and outside the gym. You can manage it easier inside the gym through loading, through intensity of how you push in a workout, through volume. So like, whereas outside it might be a little bit harder to play around with, especially late nights of like waking up for a child. But
you got to. That's it. You got to
taking them all into account.
And then you got to look at like what, you know, when you do step into a gym, like what is it that you do want? Is it the athletic looking body? Is it a performance because you are looking to go to do a local competition of some sort? Then it's like, try and find out like what your goals are, or if it's just like where I'm on the approach at the moment, it's just longevity. It's just like being healthy.
You've got kids, you want to be able to play with them when you're 60, 70.
Exactly. You know, when I go home and it's time to play with the kids, it's like, where's my energy levels? Now, if I'm zumped out because I've done my training in the day and then I'm at home already like an old man,
mashed potato.
What good is that for? You know, and that's because, you know, I've got to balance it out.
I don't think, like the balancing of like fulfillment in gym and outside of gym is kind of, it's that will definitely be individual.
Yeah.
But even if you do achieve burnout, there is definitely ways that you can sustain everything that you're doing, but you just have to manage it.
You have to manage it. You have to manage it, and that's obviously you can't manage your family. You can't say, right, kids, they are you always got to put your prioritize first. So family and stuff like that are going to be your priorities.
That comes down to
something to manage. Will easily be your training schedule. Less is more. Such a big saying, especially for the master athletes now, where your body is just, you know, not as fire as it used to be. Guys, we all know that testosterone levels start to slowly come down, and we all know that one of the best test boosters in the world is sleep. You know, if you get your sleep, that is going to help you keep that level going. So it's like, you know, prioritizing what is needed and understanding where you are, controlling your intensity with your life and your training, and trying to move forward, and then trying to identify. I think that's the important, like listening to a podcast like this where we can explain to you, you might go, actually, I felt like that.
Do you feel tired when you go home every day?
Yeah, you can feel a burnout slowly starting to come.
Doesn't have to be.
I've had clients, I've seen members in here when I've had to go over and talk to them and go, you're looking tired, man. I think you're looking like you're approaching that, or you're in the burnout stages. Like, have you thought about resting? Because the last thing you want to do is you want to do more. You're thinking, oh no, I'm getting unfit, I'm going to get fat, I need to push, and it's like, no, you need to take a step back so you can come back forward.
I think your example is obviously like the first example you gave where you were injured and you just couldn't do anything. That's an extreme, and if you get there and you've been there, it sucks. There's definitely, it's not saying even if you do reach burnout that you completely stop training. There's just loads of things that you can do to manage it. You can do
loads.
Like your easy aerobic work. You can completely rest. You can change loading. You can change and I think aerobic work is just so important.
Key.
It staves off.
It's key for any training. Steady aerobic work. And I think a lot of people don't understand what aerobic work really is and how of a saviour that can be to any of your training schedule, whether you're lifting weights, doing CrossFit, doing bodybuilding. I think having that nice, steady cardiovascular, sustainable work.
But the stronger your cardiovascular system is, the more robust you are.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be on the assault bike doing minute sprints and fucking dying,
With a minute rest. That's not aerobic work.
That's not aerobic work. Like if you're ramping up to, again, like something like you've got the CrossFit Open competition, maybe you'd be ramping that up towards it. And then I think definitely over the CrossFit Open now, for our CrossFitters who listen, this is definitely a time when you want to start considering burning out, because I think probably about 89% of the CrossFitters are burnt out after the Open, and that's because the level of stress it brings into the training aspect.
Oh, you think it's that extra, even that extra 10% you push just because people are around you or just because you're in a competition, that's like a level that you might not have tapped in through the year, so the fatigue factor is going to be more than 10% higher. It's going to be through the roof.
Nerds, it just, it's because if people sign up, they want to do a good score, they're going to push really hard.
You're
going to push that extra 10% without you even knowing about it, and that will take it out of you. That will slowly wear you down, especially where it was usually over 5 weeks. That's a long time of competing,
especially when you can do as many opportunities as the same workout,
especially if you do the workouts 2 or 3 times
in the same day.
In the same day to get 1 point more.
You're talking from experience now.
I've done that many times, and I'm not realizing that that's not the key thing to do in stuff like that. And then again, for our people who are not into CrossFit or whatever, but you've got a heavy lifestyle, work is pounding. The same thing, you're eventually going to burn out if you are taking that burden on and on and on. And I've got a client he's a very, very busy man, and he's had that. He's had his complete burnout, not from his training, but from his work and his lifestyle.
Training's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Training can just sit there and then it can be what pushes you over the edge, but the lifestyle is everything underneath that you don't see. So.
Yeah, and it's just moving with that, and it's just identifying it. So how you can identify the burnout is definitely tired throughout the day, especially if you're reaching for caffeine throughout the day to keep picking you up.
Well, and the cravings of food, caffeine and sugary things. It's just I need quick hits. If you're constantly tired, or tired when you wake up, you've slept for 8-9 hours and not woken up, and you're like, wait, I'm still tired. And then the worst case is injury.
But as we know, for most people, probably with burnout, we know that sleep's probably the number one problem that they've got.
Sleep better, train harder.
They're not sleeping enough. They're thinking, I'm sleeping. And when we mean by good sleep and bad sleep, if you're sleeping 7 hours but you've got up for the toilet twice,
4 or 5 times.
That's not a good sleep, I'm afraid. You need to be in that sleep. So when you go to sleep, you wake up. That's a good sleep. And that's the full recovery sleep that you're looking for mental and physical.
Just because it's normal to wake up doesn't make it.
Yeah, just because you're going to bed and you go, right, I've timed myself, I've been in bed 8 hours, but I've woken up 3-4 times in the night. That's not good. And then you've got to look, we're not going to go so much into the sleep here, but that's when I'd say definitely recommend on that book and following a little healthy protocol to help get you into better sleeps.
Better habits with that,
Then we
I
got the
think.
nutrition. You know, are you under eating with all this level of stress that you're creating? Because stress, you know,
Because you're trying to maybe cut or look a little bit better, and you're like, well, I need to train more, eat less. It's like, we know that there's definitely levels to that, and there's a lot more that comes into it. I think, yeah, you can see burnout in so many different ways. But there's definitely, not everyone's going to get to a point of burnout. There's definitely ways that you can stave away from that, and a good structured kind of periodized plan.
Oh yeah, like if you've got some people that are only training maybe 2-3 times a week, and they've got probably already on a natural balance without even thinking about it.
And you can get to your goals doing that, and it doesn't, like, you could train 5-6 days a week. It just means you need to manage the stress inside and outside a lot better.
Yeah, and then of course it's like if you're obviously going to a gym where you've got a scheduled workout, like if you go to a CrossFit gym, obviously you join the classes, and if it's a good box, then their general program should be about cycling you through phases where you're going to avoid that burnout. And then obviously if you're in a gym left to your own advice, it's definitely something to look up more, like structuring a program, not trying to max out too quick and fucking fuck yourself. Like, plan it out. You got a year. Like when I used to do bodybuilding, I used to plan out for like a year. So I'd go through a cutting phase, you'd go through a bulking phase, and obviously your training methods would change. You'd obviously try different training protocols, but stuff like that. Same with fighting. Like, fighting's a little bit shorter. Like, you'd go you'd have a fight planned. You got a lot more level of stress with that, because you know, if you've ever had a fight, it's nerve-wracking. So knowing that on that day you're going to end up fighting someone, you get the butterflies, that sucks more out of you, you know. So building up, following a year, structuring it out, and not just looking for that intensity every day to fucking thinking that's going to give you all your love and money of the goals.
The goal can stretch. A goal can stretch a year, 2 years, 5 years. Like, a goal can stretch for as long as you really want. Yeah. And you can periodize and plan for as long as you want. Yeah. So trying to definitely smash everything possible in like a short period of time, you're just gonna ramp your stress levels up, and you're not gonna get closer to the goal. You might get closer, as you said, as your experience, you got to the peak, but then you just dropped off massively.
And then it's like you've taken 2 steps back.
And that's another way that you could potentially see burnout. It's like that huge fluctuation, like, oh, I got better, but actually, wait, I've got suddenly worse after 2 months. I've got better, I got worse. And you might not have got injured, you might not have been overly stressed, maybe inside or outside gym, but it's just everything piling and adding.
And then you just keep trying to pushing with the training where you're not really identifying certain things. Like, look over a year, you should be progressively building. Like, if you're doing gymnastics or weightlifting, you should see numbers slowly going up over a year, not staying the same, or if anything dropping off. And again, it's just balancing it out, identifying. So if this does trigger you and go, wow, yeah, I can actually feel this, feel that, but I don't know what to do, there are certain other things you can do to help. Like, there are apps, sleeping apps and stuff like that. Like, I used the Whoop band. I know some people won't know what that is, but it's a data band that
brings awareness to your sleep more than anything, or like your recovery in sleep.
It helped me out massively. So once I realised my lifestyle was burnt out, everything is burnt out, I need to concentrate on my sleep. That was the number one thing I needed to focus on. So I got the Whoop band. Then I could see, wow, even though I've stopped doing the late night work, and my rhythm is still way off. And that was a nice way of helping me gauge my sleep, seeing how my deep sleep, and was I getting REM, and how many times I'm waking up in the night, and what things I could do to try and keep me into a better sleep. Obviously, if you've got children like I have, that's going to affect you. And it was just a really, really good tool to use. And then obviously to watch my level of training, like how high my impact of intensity, like on my days of recovery through the strain and recovery, and then understanding a bit more about your heart health, your respiratory rates.
Just being, I think like another,
and lungs and stuff.
Another big thing is like the whole myth of like coming in sore every day, like good workout, that you're just constantly pushing the envelope, and you're not recovering session into session into session.
Yeah, so the biggest outcome you see is like scale your workout. Even if you can do even if there's a workout program for you, and it's an RX workout, meaning it's the full capacity of that workout, but you know it's going to be a slug because you know you're not recovered and you can feel that fatigue, scale it. Scale it back to something that you can move fluently with, and you can do like 80% of that workout where you're still building what you're doing, but you're not running yourself into the ground.
Yeah, I think if any of this stuff is like twigged you, like to be like, shit, mate, I feel like that because both of us have been through different stages of burnout, fatigue, injury, recovery, and we still don't get it right now, slowly getting to a point where we periodize and are planning a lot better.
My last burnout definitely was December. So stress of lockdown, that's burning everyone out. And it is a stress.
Mental fatigue.
For me, it's about trying to earn money throughout lockdown's been very, very difficult. So it's like, that's a big stress, massive stressor on me. When you're not providing for your family and you're worrying about that kills anyone in the head. Then it comes down to, it's December. I've always liked to eat through December. And then I do excessively eat. So what do you do when you eat crappy foods? You jump into the training, I need to do more. So you end up doing more, and then because of the sugary foods on your body, especially if you haven't been having a lot of sugary foods for a long time, that can have a massive inflammation. It attacks your immune system, it really does not do you any justice. That it starts to attack the immune system. Now, as the immune system is being attacked with all these sugary and inflammatory foods that I'm eating and a bit of alcohol, I'm ramping up my training at the same time. So, of course, at the end of that, I'm going to get ill, which I did in January. I just felt whacked out. New Year's Day, I was just like on the couch, like, oh my God, I feel fatigued. Wasn't the most
exciting New Year's in history.
I realised I had to take a few weeks off training, which I did. I think I took 2 solid weeks off, nothing. And then it was a slow road back in because it was just like building back up. And again, it was just as soon as I picked up a bar and tried to do some reps, fatigue straight in. So I knew what to do, eat some good foods, balance life back out, focus back on the sleep, and away you go. Back to normal now, feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and just understanding management of it better. I think I think
there's a lot to go over there. So if there's anything you can take from this or spot the burnout coming, jump on it. Don't wait for it to happen. And another thing for me, one thing I didn't touch on that I know when I am really, really tired, and we're talking about the fight or flight, when your nervous system is tired, which is one of the big backbones behind the burnout. Is that when that nervous system is frazzled, it's not like your body where you can take a few days off and recover. That takes a long time to come back, and that is where everything we spoke about on this episode, you really need to take part of that, because when you fry out your nervous system with a big burnout, which is like the fight or flight sympathetic, that's something that you really need to touch on. And for me, where I know this is coming is my grip. My grip. One way I know is I do a lot of pulling on the bars. I love my pull-ups. I'll get days where I'm just like, my grip is really weak, and that's where I know I'm pretty fatigued and tired. Another one would be just walking with the plates. If I'm picking up 2 plates to go put on my bar and I'm struggling to get them there, that's a sign for me. I found that I'm pretty tired, and that's a time when I know I've got to back off. And depending on what program you're in, that's when you definitely be looking at a deload to avoid. That's what the deloads are there for. Avoid that burnout. Step back, build back, change the adaptation of your training, and get better. And again, look on your nutrition as well. But these are all different episodes we're going to touch on. Going to go over nutrition, some supplement health. Going to get some guests on here for the future. I think that's me pretty much all on this burnout. I think I'll just be going over the same sort of stuff if I carry on talking.
So this is caffeine before.
Yeah.
Burnout? No. I think that, the main thing to kind of leave everyone with is like, understand your why. Does training need to be that pinnacle, like that high intensity? Do you want to make it to the games or be a professional at what you're doing? Or is life the most important thing? Just
life. Like, understand what you're doing with your training, why you're doing it. Now, most of us do it to get healthy. That is the main purpose of training. And what do you want in that health? You want your longevity. So for most of us, that is the number one priority. Then if you are looking at competing at doing anything, then you can start to organise your life and go, right, this is what I need to do for this, and build it up. And I think that's the importance. I think a lot of people get sidetracked.
They get pulled into like someone else's why, or it's just being true to yourself and knowing what you want out of it.
Yeah. And having fun. I think I've done many times when I've trained and I'm not having fun anymore. And when you're not having fun, then you know that's definitely reevaluate it. Yeah. Like, my training is my life. If it's not fun, then I have to look at myself and go, right, what's going on? And normally it's because I'm just not happy with my performance, and that comes down to everything we've just spoke about. I'm fatigued. My life is too much. So definitely take in consideration on all this, guys. Burnout is a real thing, and a lot of people don't know what it's about.
Or have it and don't know that they're in
it. And you're like me back then in the years, you're thinking, oh my God, I've got some crazy disease that's eating away at me. And it's like, yeah, it's you.
Yeah,
it's you. It's your mindset. Back off, chill out, relax. It's okay to lighten up some training days and take it easy. Remember, like, less is more in such a long-term effect. It doesn't have to be go every day.
That's perfect. Less is more.
Perfect. Less is more. So we're going to leave that there. Hope you enjoy this episode. We'll be back for episode 3. So take it easy.
In the next one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.